watch the sun leave ocean sky with pink streaks. Rolling waves crash on the rocks. It's too hot for an autumn day, wouldn't you say? But every breath that I take, you're in my head, constantly echoing, saturated by sound. Every step that I take, you're in my head, images flickering and scattering all around. Time to leave across the street, kids skateboard with great knees. Stopped on the way home to buy Chirimoya. The Victoria has pretty trees. Wouldn't you agree? Every breath that I take, you're in my head, constantly echoing, saturated by sound. Every step that I take, you're in my head, images flickering and scattering all around. Every breath that I take, you're in my head, constantly echoing, saturated by sound. Every step that I take, you're in my head, images flickering and scattering all around.
It's Spiritual Sunday, and we are live. How are you doing this evening, brother?
I'm great. Happy Purim.
Happy. Well, we got to decide. Are we saying Purim, Purim, Purim,
Purim.
Purim?
Purim.
Purim.
The Ashkenaz say Purim
Totally. Yeah, we'll be.
in the thumbnail.
We will be mangling it. But we are going to be talking about what Purim really is, and as you can see from the thumbnail, well, it's actually has nothing to do with being queer. I don't know how they did that, but Purim is an incredible story about how the Hebrews were protected at a time when there was a plan to exterminate them. So it's a restoration type thing. It's a protecting of the chosen people, It's a destruction of the enemy. It's parabolic. And, whether or not this event, it's not an actual feast day, right? It's not something that Yahawashai declared on this such a day of Adar, you will have the feast of Purim or Purim. And no, it's not in the scriptures like that. So something took place. There was divine intervention. And then there was a festival sort of done to remember it on a yearly basis. We're going to be going through when it is. And, they were celebrating it, I think, last night, Saturday night to Sunday in Israel. And actually, well, we'll look at it. We'll see that on the 14th is like the first day of it. The 15th is when the walled cities fell. So the 15th will actually be tomorrow at sunset. Tonight at sunset is the 14th. We'll be bringing up the calendar. We're going to be doing some updates because tonight is marking the lunar eclipse that is the 2-week precursor to the Great American Eclipse, which is the culmination of an almost 7-year eclipse pattern. What do you think of all that, brother?
Yeah, okay, let's take it point for point, topic for topic. Purim, right? It's called a lesser Hebrew festival, okay? It is something to be celebrated because it was the act of having Christ's lineage protected, right? If it didn't happen, Haman would have had all of the Hebrews killed. That's what he was trying to do. And through Esther, which is we don't have as many stories uplifting women. So it's another amazing story that actually is centered around Esther, who's sometimes related to as the type of queen of the Hebrews. There's a lot of typologies and parabolic language that are mixed in with the scriptures. That's A. So B, it seems that the Jesuits have set up the modern day nation state of Israel, and none of the people there are actually true Hebrews. They might be descendants of some of the 12 tribes for all we know, but we all probably are. But what I can guarantee is that everything that was righteous and good, they blaspheme and they make it profane. And they've turned this festival into a satanic, queer Halloween event, really, when it should be about the celebration of the protection of the Hebrew line leading up to Christ. But we know that the people who are in Israel right now don't actually worship Christ. They think he's boiling an excrement, right? Because he went against one of the rabbis. That's what you'll get from characters like Maimonides. But we're actually going to read you the Book of Esther tonight and show you what it's all about. Moving on to the topic number 3 that you mentioned, the blood moon is tonight. That's really cool. Unfortunately, we were going to have some cloud cover and it's late, so we're not going to be able to film it. But anybody else that's not working tomorrow that's going to be up and has a good viewing angle of the moon should check it out. It's not going to be a complete red blood moon. It'll be more of a darkening of the moon in the sky, which is the moon being turned to blood in a type of way, leading up to 2 weeks into the sun being darkened. So we've got so much to go into. And the last thing that I'll say before I throw it back to you is how crazy is it that the Vatican just distorts and messes up everything? They're trying to say that we're starting the Passover week, which is supposed to be the week of unleavened bread, right? It was the 14th when you were, before the sunset on the 14th, you were to slaughter the lamb. They had their lamb dinner on the 14th, and then Christ was crucified the next day, which would have been the 15th. That had to happen on a full moon. You got the Vatican celebrating Passover with a no moon this year. It's just absolutely ridiculous how far from the truth modern day, supposedly, because Catholics call themselves Christians, how far from the truth they are. Because if you're a Christian and we don't celebrate Passover, well, then why did Christ celebrate it? Right? So you try to say that you are Christ-like as a Christian, then you should be following the commandments and the statutes and the rules and the things that he led us to follow. And I'm really excited to just put some truth out there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I will leave a link to the Rise and Grind podcast from this morning. If anybody wants to find out what happened on the 322 bloodbath leading up to the fake hoax World War III, I got that covered on the Rumble stream, because we definitely can't talk about any of that today here.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the thumbnail was a little questionable tonight, but when I looked up Purim, that's what popped up. So we will take a look at some of the imagery that shows up. We're going to read from that article that calls Purim the queerest of all the Hebrew holidays. Like you said, we're going to read Esther. We've got some stellarium to bring up. We're going to be looking at the calendar. We got a bunch to get into, brother. What do you say? Is there anything else you want to talk about before we get into it?
No, just all grace, all glory to Yahawah and his son, Yahawashai, for everything that they've done and continue to do. And I'm just so thankful and I'm so appreciative to be here tonight. And thank you for everyone that's tuning in the chat with us tonight. Thank you so much for being here.
Let's get into it.
I got stains on my jeans from the blood on my knees. Give it time, I'll feel it later. I feel so sedated, so I run through the trees with my friends from the garden. Give me somewhere to be, give me someone to be. I don't feel like home. I wanna wake up in the garden again. I'm here and I'm just pulling along. I'll stay till I find my own love song and make it feel like the garden. Make it feel like the garden. Words looking for me in the sunken apartment, hiding from its teeth. It would pull me apart. I wanna run through the trees, find myself in the garden. Give me somewhere to be, give me someone to be. I don't feel like home. I wanna wake up in the garden again. I'm here and I'm just pulling along. I'll stay till I find my own love song. Make it feel like the garden.
All right. We are back and we are checking out Purim. And so just a simple Google search, put in the word Purim and then check out the images.
Whoa, what's going on? Look at that guy. He's got a hockey puck on his head. I didn't know they had hockey puck hats. Well, I did know. I mean, I didn't know they wore them for Purim.
Yeah, they got the clown outfits. This is the first,
Whoa.
I was like, what? Right?
So I like to pronunciate it pure, like make it pure again, Purinim. But unfortunately, it's Purim. The way you pronunciated it was good. But yeah, what's going on here? You know, it basically what I'm seeing, it looks like Halloween.
Halloween. Yeah.
And not only that, but I can't even say it.
Well,
Halloween it says in the Bible that a man should never wear what pertaineth to a woman, and a woman should not wear what pertaineth to a man, and thou and thus.
yeah, well, the word that's used in these articles by these Jewish websites is queerest. So we should be able to use the word that they use, right?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll continue.
Yeah, so we're at a website here, the Jewish News of Northern California, and they are saying that Purim is our queerest holiday. Why haven't we internalized its lessons?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so, I mean, the article, the way this is the queerest of holidays is they say Queen Esther had a secret, a violent, consuming reality pulsing through her veins that kept her up at night, made every room feel like solitary confinement. If it were exposed, it could end her job, her marriage, and even her life. So the reason, if you read through this article, that this is the queerest of all holidays is supposedly because Queen Esther was keeping a secret that she was Hebrew.
Not that she was
LGBTQ, no, that she was Hebrew.
okay. Hebrew. Oh yeah, she was. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, she was keeping a secret.
So, but they're not keeping this a secret though. They're just that you can't get more flamboyant than pink tutus and rainbow. What do you call those? Tank top shirts.
Yeah, it's pretty flamboyant.
And unicorn cat hats. So I do know that the cat ears are supposed to demonstrate demon ears that Haman was supposedly to have, but they're celebrating this look here.
Yeah, so we're going to read the Book of Esther, and you're going to see that it really is not, it's not pro-LGBTQ, and it's really not the queerest of all holidays. It has nothing to do with that at all. But this is the way they celebrate it. This is the way they dress up, and they get hammered. It's all about getting drunk, and and dressing in Halloween costumes.
And you know what I also want to say is, okay, I am not for breaking what Yahawashai said was unclean. I like to live my life as a clean person. But what I do want to say is the appropriation of somebody who chooses to be different or is different, right? This is how they demonize and destroy that, right? So all the different pride movements and all these different things that you see are actually occultations of what actual people have to go through. Right. I guarantee you that I can't guarantee it, but there's a good chance that these people here are doing this for clout. They're probably paid crisis actors. And the people that are actually queer probably don't want anything to do with anybody that dresses in rainbows and tutus. So I'm just saying that they're appropriating even the LGBTQ movement here for this agenda.
Yeah. All right. So moving on from this article, we're going to continue our research with Wikipedia, the most trusted source for information out there, huh?
Wikipedia, right? There's good stuff and bad stuff everywhere. You have to sort through it and hold fast to that, which is good.
So, in the Wikipedia article, it says, according to the Hebrew calendar, and that is what we promote. That is fundamental truth number 5. We're going to be referencing. We've got the calendar to be looking at. Purim is celebrated annually on the 14th day of the Hebrew month of Adar, and it is celebrated in Adar 2 in Hebrew leap years, which occurs 7 times every 19 years. All right, so we are in a situation right now that because all the rest of the world went with Nisan 1 being 322 last year, that they are treating this as Adar 2, right?
Which we told everybody that due to keeping the position of the sun and the sign of the lamb, every so often they have to actually add a 13th month. And we let everybody know in the rapture community, because they were all against it, And so here we are a year later after we added a 13th month last year because it kept the sun rising in the sign of the Lamb during Passover. They've had to do the same, and they missed all the alignments for the fall last year because they didn't have the correct dates in. So now they've caught up with us, you're saying.
Caught up, but then we have the absolute craziness taking place of how they are saying that today is Palm Sunday and that this Friday is Good Friday.
That's what the Vatican's promoting. They had a bunch of celebrations kicking off. I think they call it Easter week. They don't even call it the week of unleavened bread. They're so off of the biblical chronology and story. It's crazy.
It's bad. So let's get a little bit more groundwork laid here. It says here, the day following the victory, they say the Jews, but it's the Hebrews, over their enemies. The 13th of Adar, a date now observed in most years with the fast of Esther. Now there's a little bit of a nuance to this. In cities that were protected by a surrounding wall at the time of Joshua, Purim is celebrated on the 15th of the month of Adar on what is known as Shushan Purim, since fighting in the walled city of Shushan continued through the 14th day of Adar. Today, only in Jerusalem, Purim is observed on the 15th, and in several other biblical settlements, Hebron, Shiloh. It's celebrated on both dates because of doubts regarding their status as cities surrounded by a wall since the days of Joshua. So notice that, the fighting was continuing through the 14th day, and so there's like the 13th, there's the 14th, and it's generally recognized that the fighting was over by the 15th. Now, the 15th is full moon. It's a Sabbath. It's also when Passover and Tabernacles begin. So, like we would think of Purim as beginning at the sundown on the 15th. So we'll be bringing up the calendar, and we will be showing you that. Do we want to go through here, let's do a little bit of a review so that when we read the Book of Esther, we have an idea of what's coming at us. It's a Hebrew holiday, not Jewish, that commemorates the saving of the Hebrew people from annihilation at the hands of an official of the Achaemenid Empire named Haman, as it is recounted in the Book of Esther, usually dated to the 5th century BCE. So this is true history that coincides with, this is the type of stuff that Josephus wrote about. It's recognized actual history that took place. Haman was the royal vizier to the Persian king Ahasuerus. I'm going to have to get that one worked out. His plans were foiled by Mordecai in the tribe of Benjamin and Esther, Mordecai's cousin, an adopted daughter who had become queen of Persia after her marriage to Ahasuerus. The day of deliverance became a day of feasting and rejoicing among the Hebrews. All right, well, let's see here. Let's bring up the calendar quick and sort of figure this out. So on 3/11, we had a new moon, which was actually the 12th new moon. Now, the rest of the world is acting like it's the 13th new moon. But then, and if you've been following these patterns at all, 2 weeks later on the 15th is your Sabbath, and we have the blood moon, which is taking place on the evening of the 24th and on the 25th. So we'll be bringing up Stellarium and taking a look at, if you have a clear sky tonight, there's going to be a blood moon in the Americas that you can check out. Now, it's not going to be a dramatic one, but we'll show you what you can expect. So this is all taking place in the 12th month. All right, and the rest of the world saying the 13th month, but it's clearly not Nisan yet. Nobody is saying that it's Nisan yet. Yet you have the Vatican that is acting like
Jehovah's Witnesses, right?
and the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're acting like today is Palm Sunday,
Wow.
and that on this Friday, they call it Good Friday, the day that Christ was nailed to a torture stake and died, right?
It was never a Friday though. It was always the 14th, the 15th day of the month.
Of Nisan,
Never
of
falls on
Nisan.
Friday. Of Nisan, yeah, or Aries, the lamb,
Yeah.
lamb sign in the heavenly 12 of the sky in the houses.
And we are definitely not there yet.
No, absolutely not. The sun is still definitely rising in Pisces.
So I don't know how people are going for this. It's the absolute psyop of psyops for them to be acting like we're somehow near Passover. So if they act like Good Friday is the day that Christ died, most people in the back of their mind at least understand that he died at Passover. So people are probably thinking that we are at Passover. But nope, you scroll out here.
Yeah.
And Passover is out here at the 22nd. According to them. They're always a day off. So it's actually on the 23rd. Yeah.
And if you do their 3 days and 3 nights in the grave, that you only have 1 day and 1 night to get to Sunday.
Yeah.
Friday.
To die on a Friday and be resurrected on Sunday.
That's 2 nights and 1 day.
Yeah, you cannot. It's not 3 days. It's another.
Right. He died on Good Friday, they say in the Vatican. That's 1 night to Saturday. That's 1 day to Saturday night, and that's Monday morning. Sunday morning. That's 1 day and 2 nights. It's just the whole story is just ridiculous. And what it doesn't line up was the Omar count. So the sheaf offering was done, and then you start counting 50 days, and that takes you to Shavuot, which is Pentecost. And all of these things have to line up if you want to be accurate.
All right, so it is absolutely not Passover right now. So for them to be acting like it's Easter is just, it's nutty. It really is nutty.
You get the rapture people. We fly. Happy Good Friday or Happy Palm Sunday from Steve Fletcher and all these other characters.
All right, so tonight, this blood moon that's over the Americas. Let's go ahead and bring up Stellarium here quick. Let's rewind this a little bit. So here's the 24th. This is the moon rising. And look at where the moon is. The moon is in Virgo at the shoulder here. And so the moon goes down. And right here is, roughly 8 o'clock, or moon comes up. The sun went down. It's darkening. So we're going to scoot ahead here a little bit and watch how this is starting to get a little bit of a red tinge around it. And so our peak eclipse is at like 2:12 in our area in Austin. So you can see that there's a little bit of a red hue around the moon right here, but it's very subtle. Right? You have to sort of, if I start clicking along now, you'll see this red hue sort of disappear, and now the red hue is gone, and then it's morning time. So look for your location, see whether or not you're going to have a clear night. We're going to have clouds here, and document it. We are all about documenting everything. Stellarium's making it seem like it's going to be a faint blood moon, but you might go out and see that it's a very strong blood moon, and we want to know. Right, but that's tonight. And then we go 2 weeks from, so remember the eclipses. The eclipses always go where there's one and then the other. It can be lunar first and then solar, or it can be solar and then lunar. Here we're going lunar solar, and
the moon turned to blood, then the sun darkened.
Mm-hmm. So then for us at 3/8, 4/8, yeah. You can see here that we still have the moon highlighted here.
That's no moon. And there's a lot of people that are saying that it's not the moon that causes it. It absolutely is the moon. You can track it.
Yeah, so as we move this forward, you're going to see This is a no moon, right? And it's going to track in front of the sun, and it's going to cross over and line up with it and totally block it out. Now, the amazing thing is that both of these objects are in movement, but when totality begins, there's going to be 4 minutes where it's like this locked before it separates and you can start to see the edge again. So,
and we're going to do a longer stream, and we're going to go through all the cool modern day, like, sort of experiments that you can do. We want everybody prepped. We want to know exactly what you could do. There's like snakes on the ground. There's different types of eclipse shadows. There's checking to hear what the birds and cicadas are going to do. There's so many things. We could take our glasses off at this time, and we'll do maybe a recap of, because we filmed the eclipse 7 years ago as well.
all right. So notice where this is taking place. The sun is what we determine when the sun is in a constellation. That's the month that we are in. So the sun here is in Pisces. It's right on one of the bands of the fish when this eclipse is taking place. Now, if you count ahead 15 days from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
I'm going to guess up out of the ocean.
Yeah, we're tracked on the moon, so let's get off of that. We got spun around. Come on. So when we find our sun again in the sky, oh, there we go. Oh, it is up in.
You can clearly see that it's in the Lamb house, which is Aries or Tela. Telaha.
Yeah, so now that we're not locked on the moon anymore, if we take this back to the 8th, we'll have a much cleaner look at this travel. So there's the eclipse.
Yep. Now we're looking for the new moon. And it's tough because Aries is such a small house in the sky, then to actually have this coordinated where the full moon has to take place where the sun is in the sign of the lamb, Aries. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. So it's hard to actually calculate. 2,000 years ago, they had to make sure that it wasn't in the bull, the next sign in Taurus, right? But we're due to precession, which is the movement of the sun falling back in these houses. That's how we're able to tell that we've been 6,000 years. Now we have to calculate not to be in Pisces, which is the fish sign.
So if we let this day progress and the sun is coming over here, setting in the west.
We're looking for the new moon, right? And that's going to kick off the new year. So right now we're still not in the year 5994.
And then we have the moon this is a full moon, will be in the Virgin. This is going to be Passover on April 23rd at sundown.
It rises as the sun sets perfectly, as the Book of Enoch explained. And we do like to have it in the constellation of Virgo during the Passover. So the moon in the Lamb, the moon in the Virgin, and the sun in the Lamb. But you didn't show the new moon. The new moon kicking off the new year, everybody. Well,
oh, yeah, it's going to be 4/9. Even Adam Fink made a revision.
Saw that.
And so we'll get this back to just before sunset. Turn around and look to the west. So here is our sun going down. Notice we are after the equinox. The sun is now north of west.
And notice the sun is setting and it's still in the Pisces sign.
Mm-hmm.
That's how hard it is to calibrate, because if we were to go another Adar and add another month, guess what? Passover wouldn't happen with the sun rising and the full moon in the sign of the Lamb.
They would jump it.
Or a sign. We would miss it. And that's the other thing. When you were reading how to calculate this stuff, the Hebrews have come up, the Yiddish people, or the so-called modern day Jews, have come up with a Metonic cycle where they don't even have to look at the sky anymore. They just count every so often. They add an Adar too. We're showing you the actual way that Moses was instructed to keep this festival.
Yeah, so here we have a moon that is, where is there? illuminated 2.3%, and the sun is down enough that this will be visible. So with the sighting of this, boom,
The new year.
hello New Year.
Hooray. We got to have a happy new year. What day is that on? Is that what day of the Gregorian Satanic Week?
April 9th is a Tuesday.
Wednesday? Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay.
Yep.
We may do something, but we may not. We'll see. It's more the week of Passover. We're definitely going to be doing stuff.
Yep. So here we are right now. We are at the beginning of celestial signs. We've got lunar eclipses taking place tonight, 2 weeks out from the total solar eclipse, which we barely have to drive to get exactly into the totality, which is incredible.
Yeah, well, to get to Alto Pass, it was quite a trek to get up to Illinois. It was tough.
Mm-hmm.
And then to get back too, after we didn't get supposedly caught up into the sky, right? We didn't fly.
Yeah, so then this is the first month then. This is Aries. And then we have Passover week where we have a seventh day sacred assembly. And then Yahawashai's appearance day is on the 8th day. And so this whole week right here is a special week. And then the Omar count begins, right? So we'll be looking.
Yep.
Go ahead.
That's what I was delineating before earlier. The wave offering for the accepted first fruits, and Christ and his passion for us was the first wave offering, and it was accepted. And what I want the Christians tuning in today to understand is that Christ came to witness unto the Father, to testify the Father's love for mankind. And the Father witnessed unto Christ by accepting his offering for all sacrifices for all time. Right? So you can't have the Father being the Son, because Christ said, if I testify unto my own self, it is not valid for you that is following the laws of Moses, which takes two to verify a witness. So Christ was the sacrifice, he was the passion, and then the Father raised him back to life, testifying back unto the acceptance of that wave offering. And then it was 50 days from here that the heavenly Holy Spirit fell upon man at Pentecost, and we were given the second dispensation, which was the dispensation of the church age.
Now, something else I want to point out here is that we've got two Great American Eclipses within 7 years of each other. Plus, there was a partial solar eclipse
Last fall.
Tabernacles. Yep. And guess when the next total solar eclipse is going to be?
2040.
2044. So it's going to be 20 years from now. That's the next soonest that's going to be in the Americas.
Wow.
So this is it, everybody. And then after that, all of a sudden there's such big gaps that I might be dead from life, from
reborn. Let's not get
2099, right?
I don't want to get people set up for false narratives. We're not rapture pushers here. We're not telling you you're going to be caught up into the sky. We just want everybody to enjoy the heavenly signs, as we're foretold by Christ that there'd be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars, and that we were to watch. And these things were actually put up into the sky by Yahawah and Yahawashai in the beginning of time for us to behold. And it's something to enjoy. It's not something to just be careful that you don't set yourself up for failure. Scotty Clark quit. His whole life was destroyed. All the people that were following along in the so-called rapture community, their lives were completely destroyed. You know how many fell away after this? And now you have the modern days who are trying to ride the coattails of that. Scotty Clark doesn't believe in a pre-tribulation rapture anymore. He came out and he completely debunked it with scriptures, right? Unlike any of these other people out here. But what we want to do is we want to build you up in the truth. We come to you with love and truth. We don't come to you with lying lips and deceitful hearts behind your back. We're going to tell you straight up what it actually is.
Yeah, so the 2044 next total eclipse after this year is it's a really odd one. This is one that we can use to absolutely debunk heliocentrism. A lot of people act like somehow the eclipses are proof that we're on a spinning ball flying through space, when when all you have to do is look at this path here, and it is absolutely obvious that we cannot be on a spinning ball flying through space, because the Earth would have to actually stop, spin back the other direction, and then move forward again. And no, you can't. You can't go both east and west. And
Look at that path.
it's got a huge hook to it. This one is a huge.
Horseshoe.
Yeah.
It's going backwards too.
Yeah. So here's our 44 right up here. 20-year gap between the one coming up and then this one. Then
I
there's
like to look at these false predictions. We don't even know if the Earth is going to still be standing in the same. It's not going to be the exact same way that it is now. So what we're looking at is just witchcraft, soothsaying, and computer programs.
yeah. Well, then we got 2045, 2071. That doesn't even hit the United States. That's in Mexico.
It's a great Steve Fletcher eclipse.
2078. 2052, and then 2099. It literally goes directly over my house, but there's no chance that
Your childhood house.
Jason Laufenberg is going to be around in 2099, because
Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm already 51. So
The Earth, the sun, and the moon, and the heavens aren't going to be here. So let's not get too carried away.
yes, but that shows how special these eclipses are. The X, right? The 2017 one, the 2024. We went to where that crossing is, and what did we find there?
A big cross.
Really big cross, right? Right at the intersection.
I do like that the mathematical statistic programs that have run the simulations do show how rare it is to have two back-to-back within 7 years compared to all these jumps, 40, 50, and 100 years out. Absolutely, you know?
Yep.
Time to be alive, huh, everybody? Come on.
Yeah, watch this one. As far as here comes.
Centrists.
Here's the one in 2044. So the red up here is where the totality is coming in. So the totality came from the east. It's now moving to the west, and so it comes over here. So it started over here, it came over here, and now it's going to move. Watch back to the east. It shoots off the side there. So if the Earth were spinning, it would actually have to stop, go the other direction, and then start going again in order to create a path like that. It's an absolute heliocentric debunk. Just wanted to show people that real quick. The eclipses debunk being on a globe. They're right there.
Not possible.
It's going two different directions. All right. All right.
You didn't have clown music to play for that.
Exactly. So we could
Take a song break, right?
take a song break, and then we'll come back and read the scriptures.
Let's go. Thanks for that presentation. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. Happy Purim.
I've been looking for your love. I've been looking for your love. Ooh, looking for my love, just like Draco.
are back in the Book of Esther. We're going to be reading it from the NIV. Some people will ask us, what translation do you guys prefer? We prefer the NIV, but we always tell anybody that if you get to something that there's a question of doctrine regarding it, always go to the interlinear. Check and see what the words were in the original Hebrew or Greek, depending on which verses you're reading. And look at those definitions, and then check to see whether or not the translation you are using has translated it correctly. We have the tools now these days to be able to double check the translators to make sure that they didn't mess it up.
On everything. And, you know, crazy enough, I would have never put a bet down. I don't gamble or bet very often. That's not my thing. That we would have gone into the 66 book canon and we were going to pick out the Book of Esther to read. Not Genesis, not Exodus, not the New Testament. Here we are, Team Yahawashai, reading you the Book of Esther, chapter 1 on Purim.
Absolutely. And, you know, we do have the thought in mind of actually doing a reading of the entire Bible, so that you would have us reading the Bible to you if you're interested. Have a clean version of the entire thing, so you'll see, like, it's not that big of a project, everyone. We're going to read this entire book tonight. It's probably going to take us roughly 35 minutes of reading. You can read the entire Bible, they say, in around 70 hours, 75 hours. It's not horrendous. So go ahead and sit down and start reading.
Start reading, yes. Or if you're traveling, if you've got lunch breaks, if you got time, there is not a better book ever written besides the Book of Enoch, the Book of Adam and Eve, Jubilees, Jasher, and I can go on and on and on. They're all the best books ever. And they've got great language. And, you know, it can raise up your intelligence. And it's like manna. When you read it, your soul eats.
All right, so I'll read here, and then we'll switch. Queen Vashti deposed. This is what happened during the time of Xerxes. The Xerxes who ruled over 127 provinces stretching from India to Kush. At that time, King Xerxes reigned from his royal throne in the citadel of Susa, and in the 3rd year of his reign he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. The military leaders of Persia and Media, the princes, the nobles of the provinces were present. For a full 180 days he displayed the vast wealth of his kingdom and the splendor and glory of his majesty. When these days were over, the king gave a banquet lasting 7 days in the enclosed garden of the king's palace for all the people from the least to the greatest who were in the citadel of Susa. The garden had hangings of white and blue linen, fastened with cords of white linen and purple material to silver rings on marble pillars. There were couches of gold and silver on a mosaic pavement of porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and other costly stones. Wine was served in goblets of gold, each one different from the other, and the royal wine was abundant, in keeping with the king's liberality. By the king's command, each guest was allowed to drink with no restrictions, for the king instructed all the wine stewards to serve each man what he wished. Queen Vashti also gave a banquet for the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. On the 7th day, when King Xerxes was in high spirits from wine, he commanded the 7 eunuchs who served him, Muhammad, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abigatha, Zethar, and Carxes, to bring before him Queen Vashti, wearing her royal crown, in order to display her beauty to the people and nobles, for she was lovely to look at. Now I'm just going to interject here that you will hear that the wearing her royal crown, there is some speculation that that was all she was to be wearing, just the crown, but when the attendants delivered the king's command, Queen Vashti refused to come. Then the king became furious and burned with anger. Since it was customary for the king to consult experts in matters of law and justice, he spoke with the wise men who understood the times and were closest to the king, Karshena, Shithara, Admatha, Tarshish, Marise, Marcina, and Mumakan, the 7 nobles of Persia and Media, who had special access to the king and were highest in the kingdom. According to the law, what must be done to Queen Vashti? He asked. She has not obeyed the command of King Xerxes that the eunuchs have taken to her. Then Mumakan replied in the presence of the king and the nobles, Queen Vashti has done wrong, not only against the king, but also against all the nobles and the peoples of all the provinces of King Xerxes. For the queen's conduct will become known to all the women, and so they will despise their husbands and say, King Xerxes commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, but she would not come. This very day, the Persian and Median women of the nobility who have heard about the queen's conduct will respond to all the king's nobles in the same way. There will be no end of disrespect and discord. Therefore, if it pleases the king, let him issue a royal decree, and let it be written in the laws of Persia and Media, which cannot be repealed, that Vashti is never again to enter the presence of King Xerxes. Also, let the king give her royal position to someone else who is better than she. Then, when the king's edict is proclaimed throughout all the vast realm, all the women will respect their husbands, from the least to the greatest. The king and his nobles were pleased with this advice, so the king did as Mumakan proposed. He sent dispatches to all parts of the kingdom, to each province in its own script, to each people in their own language, proclaiming that every man should be ruler over his household, using his native tongue. Now I'll read one more chapter. Esther made queen. Later, when King Xerxes' fury had subsided, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what he had decreed about her. Then the king's personal attendants proposed, let a search be made for beautiful young virgins for the king. Let the king appoint commissioners in every province of his realm to bring all these beautiful young women into the harem at the citadel of Susa. Let them be placed under the care of Hegai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women, and let beauty treatments be given to them. Then let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. This advice appealed to the king, and he followed it. Now there was in the citadel of Susa a Hebrew of the tribe of Benjamin named Mordecai, son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, who had been carried into exile from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, among those taken captive with Jehoiakim, the king of Judah. Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, who he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This young woman, who was also known as Esther, had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter when her father and mother died. When the king's order and edict had been proclaimed, many young women were brought to the citadel of Susa and put under the care of Hegai. Esther also was taken to the king's palace and entrusted to Hegai, who had charge of the harem. She pleased him and won his favor. Immediately he provided her with beauty treatments and special food. He assigned to her 7 female attendants selected from the king's palace and moved her and her attendants into the best palace in the harem. Esther had not revealed her nationality and family background because Mordecai had forbidden her to do so. Every day he walked back and forth near the courtyard of the harem to find out how Esther was and what was happening to her. Before a young woman's turn came to go into King Xerxes, she had to complete 12 months of beauty treatments prescribed for the women, 6 months with oil of myrrh and 6 with perfumes and cosmetics. And this is how she would go to the king. Anything she wanted was given her to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. In the evening she would go there, and in the morning return to another part of the harem to the care of Shagashagaz, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She would not return to the king unless he was pleased with her and summoned her by name. When the turn came for Esther, the young woman Mordecai had adopted, the daughter of his uncle Abhail, to go to the king, she asked for nothing other than what Hegai, the king's eunuch, was in charge of the harem, suggested. And Esther won the favor of everyone who saw her. She was taken to King Xerxes in the royal residence in the 10th month, the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. Now the king was attracted to Esther more than to any of the other women, and she won his favor and approval more than any of the other virgins. So he set a royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. And the king gave a great banquet, Esther's banquet, for all his nobles and officials. He proclaimed a holiday throughout the provinces and distributed gifts with royal liberality. When the virgins were assembled a second time, Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate. But Esther had kept secret her family background and nationality just as Mordecai had told her to do, for she continued to follow Mordecai's instructions as she had done when he was bringing her up. During the time Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, became angry and conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. But Mordecai found out about the plot and told Queen Esther, who in turn reported it to the king, giving credit to Mordecai. And when the report was investigated and found to be true, the two officials were impaled on poles. All this was recorded in the Book of the Annals in the presence of the king.
Wow, impaled, huh? Imagine that treatment was brought back for all the crooked politicians. Screen share?
Yeah.
Imagine. Wouldn't that be amazing to see actual justice take place?
Yes.
So we've got, is everything on the screen nice and clear and in the correct spot?
Yeah, looks good.
So it says Haman's plot to destroy the Hebrews. After these events, King Xerxes honored Haman's son, Hammedatha, the Agagite, elevating him and giving him a seat of honor higher than that of the other nobles. All the royal officials at the king's gate knelt down and paid honor unto Haman. For the king had commanded this concerning him, but Mordecai would not kneel down or pray unto him and give him honor. Then the royal officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, "Why do you disobey the king's command?" Day after day they spoke to him, but he refused to comply. Therefore they told Haman about it to see whether Mordecai's behavior would be tolerated. For he had told them he was a Hebrew. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor, he was enraged. Yet having learned who Mordecai's people were, he scorned the idea of killing only Mordecai. Instead, Haman looked for a way to destroy all of Mordecai's people, the Hebrews, throughout the whole entire kingdom of Xerxes. In the 12th year of King Xerxes, in the first month, the month of Nisan, the pur, that is, the lot, was cast in the presence of Haman to select a day and month. And the lot fell upon the 12th month, the month of Adar. Then Haman said to King Xerxes, "There is a certain people dispersed amongst the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of our other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I will give 10,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasury." So the king took his signet ring from his finger and gave it to Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Hebrews. "Keep in the money," the king said to Haman, "and do with the people as you please." Then on the 13th day of the first month, the royal secretaries were summoned. Is that the right pronunciation of that word? Secretaries were summoned. They wrote out in the script of each province and in the language of each people all Haman's orders to the king's satraps, the governors and the various provinces, and the nobles of the various peoples. These were written in the name of King Xerxes himself and sealed with his very own ring. Dispatches were sent out by couriers to all of the king's provinces with the order to destroy, kill, and annihilate the Hebrews, young and old, women and children, on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, and to plunder all of their goods. A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued in law in every province and to be made known to the people of every nationality so that they would be ready for that day. The couriers went out, spurred on by the king's command, and the edict was issued in the citadel of Shushan. And the king and Haman sat down to drink, but in that city of Shushan was bewildered. I'm going to go on and read one more. Chapter 4. Mordecai persuades Esther to help. When Mordecai learned of all that had been done, he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes, and he went out into the city, wailing loudly and bitterly. But he went only as far as the king's gate, because no one clothed in sackcloth was allowed to enter in it. In every province to which the edict and order had come, there was a great mourning amongst the Hebrews, with fasting, weeping, and wailing. Many lay in sackcloth and ashes. When Esther's eunuchs and female attendants came and told her about Mordecai, she was in great distress. She sent clothes for him to put on instead of sackcloth, but he would not accept them. Then Esther summoned Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, and assigned it to attend her, and ordered him to find out what was troubling Mordecai and why. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in the front of the king's gate, and Mordecai told him everything that had happened unto him, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Hebrews. He also gave him a copy of the text of the edict of their annihilation, which had been published in Shushan, to show that Esther and to explain it to her. And he told him to instruct her to go into the king's presence to beg and plead with him for their people. Hathach went back and reported to Esther and Mordecai what he had said. And then she instructed him to say unto Mordecai, all of the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that they must all be put to death, unless the king extends the golden scepter to them and spares their lives. But 30 days have passed since I was called to the king. And when Esther's words were reported unto Mordecai, he sent back this answer. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you are alone. Of all of the Hebrews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Hebrews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Then Esther sent a reply unto Mordecai, go gather together all of the Hebrews who are in Shushan and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. And I may attend will fast as you do. And when this is done, I will go unto the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went away and carried out all of Esther's instructions.
All right, and I will take over at 5. Esther's request to the king. On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the hall facing the entrance. When he saw Queen Esther standing in the court, he was pleased with her and held out to her the gold scepter that was in his hand. So Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. Then the king asked, what is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half of the kingdom it will be given you. If it pleases the king, replied Esther, let the king together with Haman come today to a banquet I have prepared for him. Bring Haman at once, the king said, so that we may do what Esther asks. So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther had prepared. As they were drinking wine, the king asked Esther, now what is your petition? It will be given you. And what is your request? Even up to half of the kingdom it will be granted. Esther replied, my petition and my request is this. If the king regards me with favor, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for them, then I will answer the king's question. Haman went out that day happy and in high spirits. But when he saw Mordecai at the king's gate and observed that he neither rose nor showed fear in his presence, he was filled with rage against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home. Calling together his friends and Zeresh his wife, Haman boasted to them about his vast wealth. his many sons, and all the ways the king had honored him and how he had elevated him above the other nobles and officials. And that's not all, Haman added. I'm the only person Queen Esther invited to accompany the king to the banquet she gave, and she has invited me along with the king tomorrow. But all this gives me no satisfaction as long as I see that Hebrew Mordecai sitting at the king's gate. His wife Zeresh and all his friends said to him, have a pole set up, reaching to a height of 50 cubits, and ask the king in the morning to have Mordecai impaled on it. Then go with the king to the banquet and enjoy yourself. This suggestion delighted Haman, and he had the pole set up. That night, the king could not sleep, so he ordered the book of the Chronicles, the record of his reign, to be brought in and read to him. It was found recorded there that Mordecai had exposed Bigtha and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, who had conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. What honor and recognition has Mordecai received for this? The king asked. Nothing has been done for him, his attendants answered. The king said, who is in the court? Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the palace to speak to the king about impaling Mordecai on the pole he had set up for him. His attendants answered, Haman is standing in the court. Bring him in, the king ordered. When Haman entered, the king asked him, what should be done for the man the king delights to honor? Now Haman thought to himself, who is there that the king would rather honor than me? So he answered the king, for the man the king delights to honor, have them bring a royal robe the king has worn, and a horse the king has ridden, one with a royal crest placed on its head. Then let the robe and horse be entrusted to the one the king's most noble princes. Let them robe the man the king delights to honor, and lead him on the horse through the city streets, proclaiming before him, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Go at once, the king commanded Haman. Get the robe and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai the Hebrew, who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything you have recommended. So Haman got the robe and the horse. He robed Mordecai and led him on horseback through the city streets, proclaiming before him, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Afterward, Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman rushed home with his head covered in grief and told Zeresh his wife and all his friends everything that had happened to him. His advisers and his wife Zeresh said to him, since Mordecai, before whom your downfall has started, is of Hebrew origin, you cannot stand against him. You will surely come to ruin. While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried Haman away to the banquet Esther had prepared.
What a twist, right?
Yep.
What a twist. I guess you can just click my presentation back on and we can keep it the way you have it.
Yeah, you ready for, you're at 7?
Yeah, I've got it up.
Okay, got
You
it.
just have to, yeah. Haman impaled? What is going on, right? What does this have to do with what they're celebrating in Israel today? It's not right. It says here, so the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet. And as they were drinking wine on the second day, the king again asked Queen Esther, what is your petition? And it will be given unto you. What is your request? Even up to half of the kingdom it will be granted. Then Queen Esther answered, if I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet. But because no such distress would justify disturbing the king, King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, who is he? Where is he, the man who has dared to do such a thing? And Esther said, an adversary, that means Satan, an enemy, this vile Haman. Then Haman was terrified before the king and queen. The king got up in a rage and left his wine and went out into the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the couch where Esther was reclining. And the king exclaimed, will he even molest the queen while she is with me in this house? As soon as the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Then Harbona, one of the eunuchs attending the king, said, "A pole reaching to the height of 50 cubits stands by Haman's house." He had set it up for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king. And the king said, "Impale him on it." So they impaled Haman on the pole he had set up for Mordecai. Then the king's fury had subsided. So you can see how clever everything was definitely presented here. I'll continue with Chapter 8, the king's edict in behalf of the Hebrews. Chapter 8. That same day, King Xerxes gave Queen Esther the estate of Haman, the enemy of the Hebrews, and Mordecai came into the presence of the king. For Esther had told how he was related to her. The king took off his signet ring, which he had reclaimed from Haman, and presented it unto Mordecai, and Esther appointed him over Haman's estate. Esther again pleaded with the king. Falling at his feet and weeping, she begged him to put an end to the evil plan of Haman the Agagite, which he had devised against the Hebrews. Then the king extended the gold scepter to Esther, and she arose and stood before him. "If it pleases the king," she said, "and if he regards me with favor and thinks it the right thing to do, and if he is pleased with me, let an order be written overruling the dispatches that Haman's son Hammedatha, the Agagite, devised and wrote to destroy the Hebrews in the king's provinces. For how can I bear to see disaster fall upon my people? How can I bear to see the destruction of my family?" And King Xerxes replied to the queen and to Mordecai the Hebrew, "Because Haman attacked the Hebrews, I have given his estate unto Esther, and they have impaled him on the pole he set up. Now write another decree in the king's name on behalf of the Hebrews, as seems best unto you, and seal it with the king's signet ring, for no document written in the king's name and sealed with his ring can be revoked." And at once the royal secretaries were summoned. On the 23rd day of the 3rd month of Sivan, they wrote out all of Mordecai's orders unto the Hebrews. And the straps, governors, nobles of 127 provinces, stretching from India unto Cush. These orders were written in the script of each province, the language of each people, and also the Hebrews in their own script and language. Mordecai wrote in the name of King Xerxes and sealed the dispatches with the king's signet ring, and sent it by mounted couriers, who rode fast horses especially bred for the king. And the king's edict granted unto the Hebrews in every city the right to assemble and to protect themselves, to destroy, kill, and annihilate the armed men of any nationality or province who might attack them and their women and children, and to plunder the property of their enemies. The day appointed for the Hebrews to do this in all the provinces of King Xerxes was on the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar. A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued by law in every single province and made known to the people of every nationality, so that the Hebrews would be ready on that day to avenge themselves upon their enemies. The couriers riding the royal horses went out and spurred on by the king's command, and the edict was issued in the citadel of Shushan. The triumph of the Hebrews. When Mordecai left the king's presence, he was wearing the royal garments of blue and white and a large crown of gold and purple robe of fine linen. And the city of Shushan had a joyous celebration. For the Hebrews, it was a time of happiness and joy, gladness and honor. And in every province and in every city to which the edict of the king came, there was a joy and gladness amongst the Hebrews, with feasting and celebrating, and many people of other nationalities became Hebrews because fear of the Hebrews had seized them. What a great story, and how it's been so changed by the modern day people. I think it's you for 9 and 10 now, Jay.
That's what you call flipping the script right there.
That's flipping the script.
Chapter 9. On the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, it's the month we're in right now, everybody, not Nisan, the edict commanded by the king was to be carried out. On this day, the enemies of the Hebrews had hoped to overpower them, but now the tables were turned, and the Hebrews got the upper hand over those who hated them. The Hebrews assembled in their cities in all the provinces of King Xerxes to attack those determined to destroy them. No one could stand against them because the people of all the other nationalities were afraid of them, and all the nobles of the provinces, the satraps, the governors, and the king's administrators helped the Hebrews because fear of Mordecai had seized them. Mordecai was prominent in the palace. His reputation spread throughout the provinces, and he became more and more powerful. The Hebrews struck down all their enemies with the sword, killing and destroying them, and they did what they pleased to those who hated them. In the citadel of Susa, the Hebrews killed and destroyed 500 men. They also killed Parshathada, Daphalon, Asphatha, Portha, Adala, Adatha, Parmastha, Arisa, Erida, and Bazatha, the 10 sons of Haman, son of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Hebrews, but they did not lay their hands on the plunder. The number of those killed in the citadel of Susa was reported to the king that same day. The king said to Queen Esther, "The Hebrews have killed and destroyed 500 men and the 10 sons of Haman in the citadel of Susa. What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is your petition? It will be given you. What is your request? It will also be granted." "If it pleases the king," Esther answered, "give the Hebrews in Susa permission to carry out this day's edict tomorrow also, and let Haman's 10 sons be impaled on poles." So the king commanded that this be done. An edict was issued in Susa, and they impaled the 10 sons of Haman. The Hebrews in Susa came together on the 14th day of the month of Adar, and they put to death in Susa 300 men, but they did not lay their hands on the plunder. Meanwhile, the remainder of the Hebrews who were in the king's provinces also assembled to protect themselves and get relief from their enemies. They killed 75,000 of them, but did not lay their hands on the plunder. This happened on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day they rested and made it a day of feasting and joy. The Hebrews in Susa, however, had assembled on the 13th and 14th, and then on the 15th day they rested and made it a day of feasting and joy. This is why rural Hebrews, those living in villages, observe the 14th of the month of Adar as a day of joy and feasting, a day for giving presents to each other. Mordecai recorded these events, and he sent letters to all the Hebrews throughout the provinces of King Xerxes, near and far, to have them celebrate annually the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar as the time when the Hebrews got relief from their enemies, and as the month when their sorrow was turned into joy and their mourning into a day of celebration. He wrote them to observe the days as days of feasting and joy and giving presents of food to one another and gifts to the poor. So the Hebrews agreed to continue the celebration they had begun, doing what Mordecai had written to them. For Haman, son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all the Hebrews, had plotted against the Hebrews to destroy them, and had cast the pur, that is the lot, for their ruin and destruction. But when the plot came to the king's attention, he issued written orders that the evil scheme Haman had devised against the Hebrews should come back onto his own head, and that he and his sons should be impaled on poles. Therefore these days were called Purim, from the word pur, because of everything written in this letter and because of what they had seen and what happened to them. The Hebrews took it on themselves to establish the custom that they and their descendants and all who joined them should without fail observe these 2 days every year in the way prescribed and at the time appointed. These days should be remembered and observed in every generation by every family and in every province and in every city. And these days of Purim should never fail to be celebrated by the Hebrews, nor should the memory of these days die out among their descendants. So Queen Esther, daughter of Abihail, along with Mordecai the Hebrew, wrote with full authority to confirm this second letter concerning Purim. And Mordecai sent letters to all the Hebrews in the 127 provinces of Xerxes' kingdom, words of goodwill and assurance, to establish these days of Purim as their designated times, as Mordecai the Hebrew and Queen Esther had decreed for them, and as they had established for themselves and their descendants in regard to the times of fasting and lamentation. Esther's decree confirmed these regulations about Purim, and it was written down in the records. In our last chapter, King Xerxes imposed tribute throughout the empire to its distant shores, and all his acts of power and might, together with a full account of the greatness of Mordecai, whom the king had promoted, are they not written in the book of the annals of the kings of Media and Persia? Mordecai, the Hebrew, was second in rank to King Xerxes, preeminent among the Hebrews, and held in high esteem by his many fellow Hebrews because he worked for the good of his people and spoke up for the welfare of all the Hebrews.
Kind of reminds me a little of Joseph too, right? How the stories overlap. I mean, how wonderful of a story is that? The flipping of the script, the humbleness of the Hebrew people, and how it was also documented in the annals of the kings of Media and Persia. Again, verifying the genealogy going back to Adam and why we know the truth about Christ.
These Hebrews, the chosen people.
They were, I mean, but the first son, Esau, it went to the younger brother, right, Jacob. So we continue to see the different parabolic language throughout all the different stories. And, I really love this story because it's about a woman, and Mordecai. Mordecai's righteousness and the fact that he protected the king is what gained him great favor. And then it shows, the hateful Haman, the Cain, the parabolic language is just so much in the scriptures. But I enjoyed it. It was nice to read it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is the type of script flipping that's going to take place during the Great Tribulation. Those that are in control, that have been abusing the faithful, everything gets flipped, and it's going to be an Esther and Haman thing again that takes place during the Great Tribulation when we see the script flipped again. So we're looking forward to the Great Tribulation beginning, because we know that the good people, the righteous people, are going to be protected, and through supernatural means, the way we saw things turned around in this situation, that's the kind of stuff that's going to happen again. And the chosen people are going to be protected again. So it's a story that brings faith to me.
Not taken, but protected.
Yeah.
And it also goes back to the Book of Enoch and all the other situations that verify the veracity of the way that the story is prophesied. So we're going to look back at this and we're going to remember. And it was a great book. I enjoyed it very much. And it's always fun to come on to YouTube and try to, we don't like to just read a verse of the day. Here, let's go talk about asteroids in the Oort cloud. Or here, let's tell you what the scriptures really mean about being raptured or hapazo. No, we actually I love actually just getting in and reading the books, reading them all. And I just give all grace, all glory, all thanks to the Creator and his son, Yahawashai and Yahawashai, and to Esther and Mordecai. Boy, my heart just glows warmth for them and what they did, and how the Hebrew people were protected so that we could have Christ, right? This was all to prepare the way for the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords.
And you can clearly see now, after having read the book, that there's no reason to, call Purim the queerest of all holidays.
No.
Absolutely no reason for that. And then the Bible does say that, the people will go astray, and they'll start making their own festivals. And so they're not doing it at the correct time. They did it last night, and they've turned it into
Blasphemy, debauchery.
So
Hedonism. I could go on.
Yeah. So we keep hoping and praying that script flip comes soon, and we shared with people the calendar where we're at. we've got a couple big events taking place. It won't be long, and we'll be at the lunar eclipse very soon now, and 2 weeks from now.
Eclipse tonight. Yep.
Yeah.
Solar eclipse on the 8th.
Absolutely.
And then Passover, which we like to call Yahawashai's victory celebration. The meal kicks it off. And then the week of unleavened bread.
All right. Is there anything else that you want to share, brother?
No, I'm super grateful. All glory to Yahawah and Yahawashai, all of the heavenly host, all of the earthly descendants, and all of those who will reign as sons and daughters of Abraham.
All right. Where's the only place people are going to get this content?
Only on the Yahawashai Network.
You get those eyes, red and wild, no snap will take you out of that wasted time, hypnotized, stuck right here until you come back. What set it off a line you cross and play pretend when it's too late, you're in a state of paper thin. I can't relate, and at this rate I know it'll crash. I understand you have demands, but lies won't pass. Oh, you wish you could stop the fade, wish you could see it all the time. You wish that you could rewind. Oh, you wish you could stop the fade, wish you could see it all the time. You wish that you could rewind. Crystallized, you finally find the dream we're chasing. Through the vine, a friend of time is always waiting. I'll be waiting. Set it off a line you cross and play pretend. It's too late, you're in a state of paper thin. I can't relate, and at this rate I know it'll crash. I understand you have demands, but lies won't pass. Oh, you wish you could stop the fade, wish you could see it all the time. You wish that you could rewind. Oh, you wish you could stop the fade, wish you could see it all the time. You wish that you could rewind. Oh, I feel the sun coming around, I feel the tension tearing down. When the sky falls to the ground, run, bite the bullet. Oh, I feel the sun coming around, I feel the tension tearing down. When the sky falls to the ground, run, bite the bullet. Oh, you wish you could stop the fade, wish you could see it all the time. You wish that you could rewind.